started. So if folks can hear me out in the hall, we're going to get started. If folks want to come on in. And thank you all so much for coming today. I know that we've already gotten quite a few comment cards up here. I'll just start by just introducing myself and the purpose of the event today. So my name is Ashley Carrick. I'm the State House Representative for West Fairbanks, which includes right here where we're at West Valley High School. It also includes the whole west side of town, including Esther Dome. And over the course of the last 6 to 8 months or so, I've just heard from many, many community members, definitely both sides of the issue, but largely in opposition to and with many questions about a mining proposal that is slated to start its formative work on Esther Dome this coming spring and summertime. And that's with the U.S. Antimony Corporation. And I just wanted to give a little context for why we're hosting this session. So let me just pull my notes up, make sure I get the dates right. So on Monday, September 8th, the United States Antimony Corporation hosted what they labeled a VIP tour of a new proposed mining site on Esther Dome that would be mining for antimony. And there's a really detailed list of Q&As about antimony mining in general out front that U.S. Antimony Corporation had provided at that event. We've made many copies, so you can pick that up. And they talked about a little bit where the scope of the project would be and just some basic details about what they were going to accomplish. They also committed to doing community outreach and stakeholder engagement in the surrounding area. And so my office reached back out to U.S. Antimony Corporation on several occasions. We asked about a timeline for when that community engagement would occur. Throughout that process, there were multiple news stories about this project, and so the community started to gain a lot of awareness and interest. And throughout that process, we did not hear back from U.S. Antimony Corporation about potential public engagement opportunities. So fast forward to October 31st, after multiple attempts to contact and not hearing back answers to questions, my office had asked if we could co-host a town hall just like this one with U.S. Antimony Corporation to take place sometime shortly in the new year. They did not get back to us, and so after not receiving a response for over 2 months, on about mid-January of this year, we decided to host this as a listening session rather than a joint town hall with U.S. Antimony Corporation. And it's partially in response to all the feedback we've received, whether positive or negative. There's definitely a lot of interest and questions and need for comment on this project. And we want to encourage U.S. Antimony Corporation to come and communicate with our folks in the area. I know we're going to hear a lot of testimony today about Esther Dome and what it means to folks. We may also hear a lot of testimony about mining and what it means to folks. So I just want to establish a couple ground rules before we get started, as people keep coming in. Welcome. One is whether or not someone testifies in support or opposition, I will just ask everybody here to please try to be as kind and respectful to all other testifiers. There might be some strong differences of opinion, and that's perfectly okay. That's what we're here for. So please try to keep any side commentary on people's testimony to a minimum. It's really hard to stand up in front of people with a microphone, so just try to be really kind to others. And then secondly, and perhaps most importantly for everybody today, we are going to, given the volume of people at this event, try to keep a strict time limit of 3 minutes per person. And so I will really not want to cut you off, but I apologize in advance if people are going well over 3 minutes. I will cut you off, and we will have to move on to the next person. This is just in an effort to get to as many people as possible today. Just for another little bit of housekeeping, if you have not already and you would like to, please feel free to go back out front and grab one of these sign-in sheets / comment cards. On the front, if you could please put your name and address. I will not read that out loud, not your address, just name On the back, please select yes if you want to speak today. Please select no if you don't. I have a few that aren't filled out, so I'm going to assume that means no. If you change your mind, please feel free to go back out and fill out another comment card and have it brought forward. If there is time after we take all the testimony that we can, I will just open it up and ask if there's anybody else who would like to speak today. And that's about it. Are there any housekeeping questions about the format today? Oh, I did want to tell folks too. So this is really important. Since the planning of this listening session, my office has finally been able to get in touch with U.S. Antimony Corporation. They have hired public relations folks and a lobbyist. So there seems to be, finally, a lot of interest in doing events like this in the future. Because of the late notice for this event, we offered to plan a future event with them and to just take the testimony today. So just wanted to provide that update that we have been in contact with U.S. Antimony Corporation. The testimony people provide today, we will be able to get back to an actual person who we have some expectation of an actual response from. And that has not been the case up to this point. And so I just want folks to know that I'm listening to you, but in addition, we do have a line of communication open and commitments for future events like this with the mining stakeholders. So I just wanted to make sure folks are aware of that. Any process-related questions about what we're doing today?
I just wanted to find out how is U.S. Antimony going to provide, what format will the answers to the questions come back?
So Lou's question was, how will we get answers back from U.S. Antimony Corporation? They have agreed to provide answers in writing to questions that we forward to them. So it's my intention to likely de-identify a lot of questions, because I'm guessing we'll hear some of the same questions, send them all in bulk to their representatives, and then send those back out to the community. If you are not already in this room and you'd like to be, I do send out a weekly newsletter from my office, and there's information out front about my office, how to sign up for that newsletter. We will probably share with direct stakeholders some of the answers we get. We will also likely share a lot of the answers in that newsletter. And my office is always available if you'd like to reach out and get additional answers. Again, limited to process questions about what we're doing today. Leah.
Is there a note taker, or is it being recorded?
So this session is being recorded. It's not being live streamed, and it's not being Facebook Live. So feel free to, we do have media here, just want to let folks know. Media is present, but we are not live streaming this event today. The recording is for internal use by our office. Any other questions? Yes.
Just for my clarification, is this a different company that had the sort of listening sessions at the library last year?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, this is a new company.
Yes. And I'm sure you're going to hear a lot about this project in the testimony, because we do have folks that are very close in the area. So, and we're going to actually start with testimony from people living closest to the project. So I have filtered comments today. We're going to listen first to people that have indicated they live on Esterdome or in the area of Esterdome. After that, we will take comments from people generally in Fair Lakes. And we can go ahead and get started. When I call your name, we have 2 corded microphones. We can't walk them around. So I'll call folks' names, and I'm going to ask folks to please come up to either the microphone on the right or on the left. Dealer's choice. They both work fine. We tested them. And we'll go ahead and get started. And again, just thank you all so much for being here. If you did not fill out a comment card on your way in, and you would like to on the way out, please encourage you to do so. We're going to go ahead and start today with a couple of people who live very, very close to the site of the project, just because I know they're ready and willing to speak. And I'd like to ask Sherry Donner and Charlie Simmons if they could both make their way down front to the microphone. And again, if folks in the audience, I know it's a little bit formal and it feels a little weird, but if we can keep audience reaction to testimony to a minimum, that will help with our recording, and it's also just to be respectful to differences of opinion that might be in the room today. Thank you, Charlie, for kicking it off.
Okay, it was a choice between a root canal or being here, speaking in public, and I chose this. I'm not close enough.
I don't think
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. I want to thank Ashley for hosting this and everyone who attended.
there we go.
Qualified to do that back? I can bring it as I used to. Okay, I'm Charles Simmons, and I was born in Fairbanks. My Norwegian grandfather was a self-employed miner in traffic for much of his life. He met his Finnish wife at a mining camp. She was cooking. I guess he liked her biscuits. I've lived on St. David Road since 1969, and Sherry has been there since 1977. Prior to that, I camped and hiked on Estradome as a boy. Our experience living next to the revived Grand Mine was extremely unpleasant. In the 1980s, the local mine, this is to give you some perspective on what it's like to live near an active mining operation. Living next to the revived Grand Mine was extremely unpleasant. In the 1980s, the local miner partnered with a sketchy Canadian junior mining company. A mill was built and a settling pond also. And the mill was a huge noise polluter with 375 kW generators running every minute for 1.5 years solid. Much increased and often speeding traffic created at times deep mud, ruts, and 14-inch deep. I measured them with my tape measure because I do those kinds of things. The increased traffic created a lot of safety hazards and dust, which blew into our yard on a continual basis, fine silk dust whenever it was dry. And on that road, you could have silt, snow, and mud and dust all simultaneously. It's a little dirt road, winding, multiple blind corners, totally unsafe for industrial mining traffic. So it was a difficult time for us, and we were too poor to move, so we stuck with it. But one of the things I wanted to say was, let's stop romanticizing mining, past and present. Saying Fairbanks is a mining town is a meaningless rhetorical device to shut down critical thinking. Mining is big business driven by for-profit companies, mostly foreign, and I see Texas as foreign. And these companies view Fairbanks from a very different perspective than most of us who live here. Mythologizing Alaskan mining history gives us no useful tools to deal with modern day practices, and big mining companies doesn't give us the opportunity to the tools to deal with big mining companies. And let's not forget mining's toxic legacy, an industry that generates the most toxic waste in the world. And communities are often left holding the blivet. Now, I don't know how many of you know what a blivet is, but a blivet is 5 pounds of crap in a 3-pound day. So, profit-driven companies see Estradome as a potential bonanza in gold and now antimony. When U.S. Antimony held an event to promote their project, local dignitaries, politicians, and officials were invited, but no residents. During the presentation, the CEO claimed that this project would turn his company from a multi-million-dollar company into a multi-billion-dollar company. Now think about that. This implies a very large scale open pit, I don't know, mine, which could transform the dome. How much ore would it take to create those billions? What route will be used to move it? So far, locals have been told nothing. So that kind of concludes my testimony, unless I skipped a page. It must be about 3 minutes, I think.
We're at 4:23.
Oh. Bye now.
I did want to give a little latitude to Charlie Simmons and Sherry Don, who's going to testify next. They are the very closest to this project, and so I will try to hold it to 3 minutes, but thank you very much, Charlie, for testifying.
And your crew for doing this. Appreciate it.
Use the mic, maybe now.
Now it needs to go behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, there you go. I wrote something out, and when I read it this morning, it was 9 minutes. So this may seem a bit disjointed. I'll do my best here to shorten. My name is Sherry Donner. I live at that end on St. Patrick Road for about the last 50 years. Our home is a short distance from the Mohawk Mine. It's taken land use changes over time due to the sale of private, state, and federal land holdings and modern transportation. Estradome, once considered rural, is now 15 to 20 minutes from downtown Fairbanks and has become home to many who own land, built their own dwellings, raised their families, contributed to the economy of Fairbanks, and paid taxes to the borough. It's a prime recreation destination for many of you. Residents who bike, walk, berry pick, run, mush, explore, bird watch, ski, aurora watch, snow machine. It's home to the single track, Goldstream Sports Trails, the Equinox Marathon, and many well-used and valued trails. We live at the base of Estradome, and like many others, we value its beauty and diverse habitat. We also live next to an active mine and understand the profound gulf between residential areas and mining. Simply put, they are incompatible. Mining today, industrial mining, should not be permitted close to Fairbanks in an area surrounded by established neighborhoods and heavily used for recreation. To paraphrase someone, there is nothing good about living next to a mine. And I'm not going to go into it because Charlie touched on the noise, the traffic, the everything. 24-hour 7s for over a year. Light pollution, sorry, skipping a bunch of stuff. Road safety was a constant concern. Fast forward to last fall, we looked out our window and saw multiple trucks going by our flying perimeter, not adhering to the speed limit. Also, semi-trucks pulling roll-bars with equipment on them, and encounters with locals. When one day I drove down to the Mohawk and expressed my concern about the dangers of traveling fast on this public road and the safety for local vehicles and the many people who recreate here, including kids, dogs, horseback riders, hikers, etc. They had not seen or adhered to the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. Skipping. Sorry. We are very concerned about road safety this summer when we'll experience an uptick in line traffic and concurrent with recreational traffic. The only access to the mining operation on St. Patrick is by way of Estradome Road, St. Patrick Road, or Henderson Road. These roads, public roads, bisect established residences and are a corridor between Sheep Creek and Park Highway. They are narrow, hilly, windy roads with multiple blind corners and no shoulders. Some portion of each road and all of St. Patrick is dirt or gravel and experiences mud and potholes to this day, often delayed maintenance. They are not designed for heavy traffic. An increase in that heavy traffic and or transport is destructive to the roads and increases safety risks to the neighbors, recreational users, and tourists. It will compound already poor conditions and increase the need for maintenance. USAC has not reached out to local residents in this regard. Residential neighborhoods, as we are now, should not be subjected to the many adverse impacts associated with industrial mining that threaten the well-being of residents and their ability to enjoy their property and their homes. I realize that mining is important, and it has a strong history and a role to play in our community. Antimony is a necessary component for modern technology and armaments, but it's also toxic when exposed to the air, potentially causing water and air contamination. The Mohawk, being on private patented land, does not need a permit to mine. If they exceed this is my understanding, if they exceed in removing a threshold of 50 cubic yards and 5 acres, they are required to submit a reclamation notice and enter a bond pool. Antiquated mining laws in Alaska require huge dollars up front for remediation. I'd like to know from U.S. Antimony what their plan is to protect citizens and the environment from toxic mining waste and increased levels of antimony and arson. Who will cover the costs for cleanup and potential mine drainage? And I would like to speak to the opinion piece in the Daily News Miner just the other day. To mining enthusiasts who promoted the benefits of mining to our economy. According to a Department of Revenue 2024 revenue forecast, mining accounts for only 0.4% of total state revenue. Often foreign mining companies walk away with what profits are made from our resources. Additionally, the Alaska Exploration Incentive Act allows a deduction of up to $20 million of qualified costs for new mines. This does not sound like a moneymaker for Fairbanks. Mining enthusiasts don't talk about things like this, nor do they highlight any of the downsides of mining, the toxic legacy, the disruption to communities. Antimony is found throughout Alaska. Perhaps U.S. Antimony could spare our roads and our backyards. Estradome is a treasure that deserves protection. Its proximity to Fairbanks makes it an ideal place to build, reside, raise families, and refuge. Exploration on these lands is prelude to intensive mining operations and its negative consequence. The Constitution requires us first to ask if land and resource are a benefit to the people of Alaska. In our opinion, large-scale mining, such as mining is these days, on Estradome does not meet that standard. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. And again, just want to give some latitude here for Charlie and Sherry. They reached out to me very first. They felt the reason this session is happening today. Just really want to thank them for coming and for sharing that. At this point, I am going to hold people's 3-minute testimony, positive or negative, so just giving a heads up. offered some latitude for those residents very most closely located with the mine. But we will go forward with a 3-minute time frame, and I apologize in advance if I do have to cut anybody off. Also, again, just want to remind folks, please catch Stuart in the blue sweatshirt. If you have not filled out a comment card or you filled one out but you decided you'd like to speak today, you can fill out another one if you'd like and just select yes, and we will try to get to you. And we are prioritizing residents who live on Estradome or the near vicinity, and then folks in Fairbanks. So just a heads up, if you don't get called on today, it's probably because we have a number that are in the Estradome area. We will now go to Randy Pitney. And then next after Randy Pitney will be Rosemary McGuire. And again, you can feel free to come to either of the 2 mics up front. Please, Randy.
Thank you. I just came in. I'm not sure the whole format here, but certainly don't want to be rude. So 3 minutes to tell me to go back. Don't start the check.
I'll restart it for you, Randy. But you just got that one done.
I thought this was a listening session, but I do have a few things to say. Probably many of you in here, to give you where my philosophy is, or many of you in here, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I couldn't hear that one there. Many of you in here probably signed one of those 9.5-page petitions I had against black gold trucking coming up the highway. I'm not opposed to mining. I think mining is very obviously first out there in Esther. I have lived in Esther. But I would hope that we could find a common ground where we can have mining and residential areas both safely. And it may cost more money from the mining corporations, because it seems like a lot of those are Canadian anyway. But I'd like to see some type of combination there where both of them could happen. So I'm not opposed to mining, but I'm not in favor of having it go away. I protested taps in 67, 68, 69. Protested several things, but I do have one car that burns gasoline, and I do have cars that use a lot of gold and silver in the components that make them run nowadays. So, like I said, I hope we can find some common ground where we can kind of have both of them. We all know the arsenic issues out in the Esther area, Henderson Road, St. Patrick's, that was created by mining a long time ago. People didn't know better, but it was a lot to do with putting it. So we've got to figure out a way that are both compatible in my mind. Thank you very much. I can't brush my teeth in less than 3 minutes.
Thanks, Randy. And then Rosemary McGuire, and then next after that will be Joel Booth. I'm so sorry if I said that wrong.
Hey, can you hear me okay? So I actually wasn't planning to speak today, so I didn't prepare remarks, but it seems pretty important. I was born on the Grand Mine in 1977. I've lived there pretty much my whole life. I live right next door to Charlie and Sherry. We were all blindsided by the mine this fall. I remember just walking those trails with my dog and realizing that something big was going on, not knowing what it was. There's been a lot of bulldozer activity up there. They've already made a lot of changes to the woods, and I don't think they're being honest with us. I don't think that they care what we think. I have no idea whether this is going to have any regulatory teeth. My understanding is that's fee simple and like there's not much we can do about any mining that happens on that piece of property. But I am scared. I think that mining there has significant public health risks, both for blowing toxic dust, increased road traffic. That road's really heavily used by children, people walking dogs, fat bikers. The access to that road goes through densely populated neighborhoods. They're not, just based on what I can see walking in the woods, whatever they're planning is very invasive. There's huge trenches already. And I just feel like I don't even really know enough to comment adequately. They haven't really told us much of anything. But I think this is the time for us to feel scared and fight back, because I am not anti-mining. But I am anti this mine. I see no good outcome here.
Thank you, Rosemary. And we have Joel Booth next. While Joel's walking down, just for those who maybe came in a little later, I just wanted to once again state that today is a listening session. It is being recorded. This meeting is being held in response to prior lack of communication from U.S. Antimony Corporation in response to questions our office received and forwarded to them, and the request and commitment from them to host public engagement hearings, including a town hall style event early in the year. When that did not take place, we scheduled this listening session and invited U.S. Antimony Corporation. They did not respond until just about 5 days ago. So we are holding this session today. We do have an open line of communication now with U.S. Antimony Corporation. So comments today and questions will be taken down, will be forwarded to them, and we will do everything we can to respond to questions and concerns and to try to continue to host public engagement opportunities. But today is an opportunity to hear from all of you so that I am asking the right questions that folks have. So just wanted to update folks that maybe came in late. And Joel, thank you.
Yeah, I'm Joel Booth. I own Goldstream Sports, right at the base of Estradome there, Estradome and Sheep Creek Road. Having a lot of traffic, truck traffic, big things go by us is a problem. I live right up Estradome Road, a half mile from there. I have employees who live right up Estradome Road from me. It's definitely an impact concern, and those roads were never designed for trucks. They don't have the sight lines. They don't have the capacity to hold weight. But more specifically, when people mention sharp turns, on St. Patrick's Road, if you take a truck around one of those corners, you will be going around a blind corner on the wrong side of the road into oncoming traffic. That's a huge problem. Those roads are not designed. They don't have the sight lines, nor do they have the width to make the turn for those trucks and stay on their side of the road. That can't happen. I mean, that would be illegally crossing the center line. And for me, if I was out there and a truck came around that other side, I would stop and wait for them to get out of the way. I would not yield to them. If I'm on the right side of the road, that's their problem. They're not using safe business practices there. We recreate on Estradome. I was behind the developing and the building of Estradome single track. I spent 7 weeks out there this fall donating my time with a contractor that we got grants for to rebuild a lot of the trail that was there, and we're hoping to add trail. But this is a real concern for that area, and they could potentially expand into those areas. I believe this is the same mine. There's a number of things going on right now that has lease agreements with the subsurface rights under the single track. So my understanding, which I would like clarification on so we can hold them to, is if they were to go into that and they were to disturb that they would be on the hook to replace it because they are in second position because those claims that were there had lapsed at one point and were restaked after the single track was there. But a lot of people use that. We groom that in the winter for use, as well as a lot of summer use. Kids use it, adults use it. It's just used by a lot of people. And the equinox, there's a lot that goes on there. And at least coming in from that side, not that that's a side I'm familiar with, but there is no way to safely drive trucks down that road with other traffic. It's just not wide enough, and it's just not straight enough. So. But I mean, I put my business there because it was a beautiful, quiet area where people could come try out a bike. They sell bikes. They can come try out a bike in an area that's relaxing and nice instead of in a busy parking lot in the city. And that could ruin that, which would have, a huge effect on it. But it's just not safe for the public. That's the bottom line, and the road is not anywhere near safe enough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it looks like the next two people are Jamie Hansen, and then after that, Stacy Fritz. And so, again, come on over to the microphone. Make sure to talk into the microphone.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jamie Hansen. I live on Ace Road, which is about a mile up Henderson Road. And I didn't prepare comments. I will say, I feel like anything I was going to say has already been said, right? Like, this is so simple, right? It's about safety on the roads, recreation. It's about how to actually be in a heavily residential area that is now being targeted for industrial scale mining. And it's also for me about any other environmental impacts, right? Whether or not it's water or air quality. All of those are huge concerns. And I think, my questions to U.S. Antimony are, like it's been mentioned, right? Like, what exactly is the plan here, right? We know you're doing exploration, and we use that to say it's not a big deal, we're just doing exploration. But yes, what is the plan, right? Also, I think I would like some confirmations from them in terms of how are they addressing concerns around the impact of recreation? How are they addressing concerns around clear lack of safety on roads? And how are they addressing concerns around what the impacts will be on all of us who have wells on Esterdome, right? And all of us who rely on some degree of clean air. And I think the last thing that I want to say is, for me, it really comes down to property rights. I want anyone around me to be a neighbor, a good neighbor. And for me, a good neighbor is a person or a company that respects, my individual property rights and also respects the resources that all of us use on Esterdome. And I have yet to see any evidence that U.S. Antimony has any interest in that.
We have Stacy Fritz, and then next will be after that, Katie McFarland.
Thanks so much for holding this. So we live on Lower Henderson, just below Jamie and not far from Charlie and Sherry. And I really wish I had a dash cam. So I was driving on St. Patrick Road this fall. I always go very slow, and then I slow down a lot in front of Charlie and Sherry. So just as Joel was talking about, that road is far too narrow for large trucks. It's kind of too narrow for safe, car traffic, as many of you know. I was right in front of Charlie and Sherry's going very slow, and a huge ass truck came hauling ass around the blind corner. The only reason that we did not have a head-on collision is because the truck was too large to make the corner. It had to stop. It was taking up the entire road, and then it had to back up to make the turn. I took that opportunity to back into Charlie and Sherry's lower driveway. Joel's right. I should have just stood there and made them back up. But if I had been going any faster, if I was 10 yards ahead, we would have had a head-on collision. I could have died right there in front of Charlie and Sherry's house. So I had already put in my comments to DNR, suggested all the mitigation that could go into consideration for mining or exploration on Esterdome, electric vehicles, noise restrictions, hour restrictions, traffic safety. I put in all my comments in good faith, and then what did I hear? They started the activity before they got a permit. So now already my favorite trails are trash. They're causing near head-on collisions on St. Patrick Road. Why would any of us, and they refuse to meet with the community. So why would I have any reason to trust that this company will act in good faith as a good neighbor with us on Estradome. I already grew up the downriver side of mining companies that trashed the environment and left the largest Superfund site in the country for the community to clean up. No mining companies would ever take responsibility for cleaning up the Clark Fork River in Missoula. They left us with that problem, and the entire community had to come together and raise millions and millions and millions of dollars to deal with that. So there's about 1,000 red flags here. Thanks.
Thank you, Casey. Next we have Katie McClellan. After that we have Keenan McCurkin. Again, we are prioritizing those on Estradome or in the vicinity, and then we do have a number of folks generally from buildings too.
I'm concerned about this project due to its proximity to residential areas on Estradome, as well as the disruption to the numerous trails and recreation areas on the dome. As a young person living in this community, I'm deeply concerned about the ongoing mineral rush that's targeting Alaska and Fairbanks specifically due to the availability of public infrastructure. While Fairbanks might have been a mining town in its early days, it's much more than that now, and I reject the rhetoric that we need more mining to sustain our community. I personally do not want to live in a town surrounded on all sides by open pit mines, nor do I want to live in a community that subsidizes foreign companies to extract resources that do not pay reasonable dividends back to the community or the state. The current tax structures in Alaska mean that companies can get tens of millions of dollars in exploration and startup subsidies, plus 3 years of tax credits, on top of the already absurdly low tax structures that return less than half of 1% of funds to Alaska's total economy. It's not economically sustainable for our community to subsidize these foreign companies, pay the price of damage to our public infrastructure, and sacrifice neighborhoods and trails for materials that are being used to support wars around the world that further increase our cost of living. When I worked at the Northern Center, I reached out to U.S. Antimony, and later also reached out to them through communications with Save Our Domes. I never received any responses. U.S. Antimony Corporation has already fumbled the ball by not conducting basic outreach or engagement, and when given the opportunity to come to this, declining that opportunity. The CEO, Gary Evans, admits to having made mistakes in the startup of their project over the last year, but again, when invited to this session and invited to work with Representative Carrick, declined to do so. He also said in an interview earlier this year that you can't build a multi-billion-dollar corporation without making a few mistakes. To that, I would like to respond by saying you can't build a mine on Estradome without facing a strong, pissed-off group of old-timers and concerned young citizens, and will make the concerns known to your company and your shareholders.
Thank you, Katie, and Keenan.
So she had a lot to say on the kind of tax structure of things as well, and I highly agree with that. There's so much of this that is going to go straight out of the state and doesn't actually, in fact, benefit us. Sure, some jobs will occur that will make, people will have good salaries and everything like that, but that will not bring money and well-being into our economy, and it will damage our ecology in the long run. And we would have, dust, potential water impact, noise pollution, all of these other things going on. We don't want to have that. And then also, these mines have this habit, as well as do contractors. I worked for DOT for many years, and I don't anymore. But I work long enough to know that when it comes to having the responsibility for fixing these roads, none of them want to take that. Now, Henderson is on a lot of unstable material. St. Patrick's is on a shitload of unstable material, pardon my French. But they will end up leaving that to DOT. Now, any of the damage assessment and anything like that they get from third-party people always has a bias towards these companies' benefits. That is to say that they do not take responsibility for the damage that they cause in the road and the ecology. And even if they do reclamation, that doesn't necessarily restore the damage that they have done to the deeper impact and the surrounding area and all of the dust and other things that have gone around. It's taken, many thousands and millions of years for all of this stuff to settle and stay where it's at. And they're planning to come here and just stir it up. So anyway, for my part, to say that they're not going to take responsibility for what they want, and they're going to take all of the money and they're going to run with it. And so it's not going to benefit any of you guys.
Thank you, Keenan.
people being thankful. We don't have as many people who said yes to testify as I thought we might. We do have probably twice as many that have been filled out and said, not filled out that yes or no box. Just want to remind folks, if you didn't fill that box out or you said no and you changed your mind, please feel free to fill out another card so we can put you in the queue.
Hi, Mike Music. I lived in the vicinity of Estradome for certainly more than 60 years now, the last 50 or so on the south side, and where the watersheds come together. In fact, it used to be called the creeks when people referred to where they were going from Fairbanks. And back in the day when the dredge was going, and before, everything was electric, run by coal. Now it's diesel. There's an expression that says, if it can't be grown, it has to be mined. And I agree with that. It's just truth. Right? And because what we have are legal mining claims on Estradome, we know it's going to be mined. Probably for the next several hundred years. I'm thinking if they can figure out a way to go underground with solar-powered conveyor belts right to the railroad somewhere on the west side of the whatever the shuttle stations are. And with any industrial roads coming parallel with that, that's a work path for the conveyor belts. I visited a mine recently in Kentucky. I tried to get into it some years before, but the guard wouldn't let us through the gate. That's where my grandfather went cold. And the last time my wife and I were in the neighborhood, the gates opened. So we went up. We kept driving and driving and driving. First of all, there's a tipple right where the gates are that goes right into the railroad from the conveyor belt. And we followed miles after miles of conveyor belts. No more dump trucks coming down the road. And I'm not sure how much time here, so I won't get into details, but when we got to the top, and our boat riding there, this guy came in, a big pickup came over, and we had a last place. So we got to talking about fishing and money. And they figured out how to remove mountaintops with renewable energy. In fact, Red Dog's talking about putting in 8.8 kilowatts of solar. Estradome on the south side to support a mine. Solar and pump hydro. Without any diesel being burned in our neighborhood. And I'm very concerned about air and water and trails. I think that's the thing we really have to maintain. The folks that live there will have to put up in the interim with getting there the right way. I'm sorry to say that, but that's just the way life is. Thank you.
We have Luke Hopkins next. And after that will be Garrison Collette.
So, Luke Hopkins lived in Esther for many years, lived on Happy Road, and even shared times with Charlie and Jerry living on that piece of property now. I'm over between an old line that's probably going to open up for antimony on the uphill side of, the road north of Dome Road. And then, of course, I see the backside of that Estradome. But what, hearing all these issues and looking at the current slate of both local codes and state law and federal law, I want to say that we aren't really going to be able to address this, I don't feel, from the aspect of we're going to try to twist the corporation's arms with public meetings, etc. But local government and state government got to come together and update laws, update regulations that can tap back into changing grandfather rights, because lots of that exists now, and it's going to continue. And hearing the mining companies coming in and looking at local codes, which weren't necessarily addressed in time, and state law, they're going to be able to develop. And the environmental laws, I don't think, are strong enough to restrict how they develop, and that's safe enough for our community. So I'm asking people that are on the stage, people that are elected to office, even though I served in local government for many years, I can say I didn't really address it to the degree that it needed to be either. So these laws have to be changed, and grandfather rights really have to be dealt with force. So with communities developing and corporations wanting to increase earnings and develop resources, this is a start, this one meeting, but it's got to go a lot deeper than this. But I thank you for having this, and thank the public for coming in and making their comments. Keep it up, but got to fight hard. Thank you.
Thank you, former Mayor Hopkins, and we have Garrison Politness, and then after that, Torsten Benson.
Hi everybody, how's everybody doing? Roger, how you doing today, sir? For everybody that doesn't know, this is Roger Bergrath. He is the largest landowner on Esther by far, if you count mining leases this thing as so the big question we have all today is what's going to happen to Esther Dome? What's going to happen to the eastern side of Esther Dome specifically? Or sorry, the eastern side. So the biggest question is, are you going to lease your land to U.S. Engineering Center?
I'm going to lease them where?
Are you going to lease your mining ground, your gold mine area, to the U.S. Engineering Corporation?
It's already under lease with another corporation, and Now, I'm not in a position to comment, on the work that they're doing, but it's largely exploration. Nothing has been decided yet. So I don't think I can comment on it.
Yeah, you can.
The Grant Mine, as I said, is under lease with another company, and they're doing exploration work, and we have abided by all the laws that were required. We had an active line on the property. We have closed, the tailings pond has been put away, and it's complied with all laws there, and we've done cleanups. If any of you people ran around much in the early days, there were junk piles all over Esther, and we made an effort to clean up some of the messes that other people made. So that's my comment. And as I said, I have another lease with another company, and they're planning to do exploration work, and they've made no decisions yet as to whether they'll go ahead and continue, with the work on it. They are interested. Well, I probably should not comment From what I understand, the mining companies are going to have a hearing where people can come in and they'll be advised, what is going on. But the one point I'd like to make, and I wrote a letter to the editor, and a couple of months ago, and they never published it. They said they were going to. Here lately, when more interest was applied, I was told that it was going to be, they're going to republish it. Now it's over the internet. I do have copies here of what I submitted to the newsletter. If anybody wants copies, that's fine. And we have made a real effort to try to take care, show consideration towards the other people. The road is not very safe, and I'll agree to that. Fortunately, I haven't had any collisions either. So that's about all I have to say right now. There will be an opportunity or hearings, for what I understand, where they're going to, discuss the impacts of mining and stuff like that.
So I'm going to jump in. Roger didn't sign up today, so thank you for speaking anyways. And I appreciate where you're going, Harrison, but if you want to testify, that's without asking questions. Any more questions of Roger? Thank you. And if you have other comments, you definitely can have them.
So yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for showing up, Mayor Hopkins and Mayor Hopkins. That was fantastic. It's fantastic to see you guys here. Thank you so much to Representative Carrick for thank you for doing this here. So the reason I gave the microphone to Roger is because the big question is going to be how big this mine is, right? That's the main thing that we don't know. What we do know is that it's going to be a lot bigger than the current Mohawk Mine footprint over there at the upper end of St. Patrick's Road. I've already had a U.S. antimony front company knock on my door and say, I'm going to store some heavy equipment here. I'm going to put it over there. And the only way I was able to stop that from happening was to threaten immediate legal action if that were to happen. So these guys have $34 million of Department of Defense money. This is essentially Trump's play to avoid giving stronger weapons to Ukraine. The main use for antimony as the primer and gunpowder. So this is to wage a war, a long-term war in Ukraine instead of ending the war early. And it's with the Defense Department money, so these guys feel invincible. They feel like that there's nothing that we can say to stop them because they have Trump on their side. And they're playing hardball. They're still hiding under fund companies that have taken up illegal leases on my land and the lands of others. And so this is a severe emergency. The nuisance laws aren't strong enough to fight these guys, as the big mine in Foxhole explosions over there have shown. So you're going to have to really come together, folks. And I appreciate your attention. Thanks. Oh, I'm very supportive.
Thank you, Garrison. We have Torsten Benson next, and then I'll put out a call after that for a raise of hands if anyone else living on or near the Esther Dome area who didn't sign up would like to comment. So be thinking about that if you do.
Hi there, I'm Torsten Benson. I've lived on Esther Dome for 25 years. All three of my kids were born on St. Patrick Road. And that area is a gem for the town of Fairbanks, not only for the people that live there, but it has a huge amount of use by the community. And yes, Fairbanks has a long history of mining. There's a lot of mining around Estradome, around Fairbanks, around Alaska. But has the community really considered whether that's the best use and whether there's a safe plan to incorporate a mine of that scale on Estradome, around communities, around areas that are used by joggers, snow machiners, hunters, dirt bikers, hikers, skiers. But the point is, there's not just one user group, it's many, many, many user groups from all kinds of walks of life in Fairbanks. Raising kids there, using those trails all the time. You see the changes already. Look at Fort Knox Gold Mine right outside of Fairbanks as a comparison. Is that what we're talking about? The problem is we don't know anything really in detail about what the scale of this mine is and if there's consideration for making it compatible with the community. So I'm a very concerned resident of Estradome and Fairbanks and Alaska.
Thank you so much for speaking. And I have a few more cards here, and everybody else that I have who said yes to speaking today said they live around the Fairbanks area, a little bit more broadly. Is there anybody who would like to raise their hand that lives on Estradome and wants to speak? Tom.
Good afternoon, Representative Carrick. I don't need one. Is George Lounsbury here?
Use the mic. Use the mic.
So you can be recorded in this listening session.
Is George Lounsbury here? Too bad. My name's Prenzel. It's a common name in my family. I live on top of Estradome over 20 years. The late great Barry Jackson was my lower neighbor. If you got rid of, if the Felix Gold and Grant Mine joint venture disappeared, and if the publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange United States Antimony Corporation disappeared, you're still going to have the Ryan Lode mine site being developed into the future North Star Grand Lodge, and the gas from Van Horn Road in the tank is going up there to support the construction and the functioning of the three megawatt power plants that are being built there to support that future resort. In case anybody didn't know that. Thought I'd mention that. I was at the shindig that USAC had on Happy Road this past summer. And I know Ron and Rebecca. And I believe right now in this country and in this state, we still have a thing known as the rule of law. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm glad that probably the people in this room haven't tried to do with the people who wanted to stop the trucks and hire attorneys and waste 80 grand to go nowhere. USAC and Felix Gold, they're going to do what they are allowed to do via the rule of law. And the rule of law is determined in different ways. And if I were trying to do something constructive in this oil colony, I would try to find some way to bring back Bill Egan and Wally Hickle and Jay Hammond and get rid of the $8 per barrel tax credit and reduce it to $5. And I would get rid of the S corporation status and make Mr. Hildebrand of Houston, who's worth $14 billion, pay $100 million for Hillcorp operating and starving Anchorage of gas pretty soon here. That's what I would do, but I'm a registered Democrat. We're outnumbered 2-1. We'll never register a voter. We don't care. I live on Estradome. If trucks were going to go up over there and go down Nugget Creek, I say, somebody do something.
Tom, do we have anybody else who lives on or near Estradome? Anybody who has
then again, I do have my own cards. If you could please say your name and then go ahead.
I'm Kurt Dementis, and I think a lot has already been said, so rather than just go over, I mean, yes, I run the trails, and I agree with what everyone else has said. Yeah, I want to be able to continue to go and run on the trails, ride my dirt bike and snow machine and everything else for the rest of my life. It'd be great if it could run on forever. But how about the historical considerations right on St. Patrick's Road, right where they're starting this mine from what I can see? There's an old stamp mill that I think goes back to the teens, 19 something, I'm not sure, but there's a stamp mill there. You drive right by it on the road. Now that they're cutting all the brush out of there, you can see where, you know, they used to bring the ore down to the stamp mill and so on. You can kind of walk around there and see it. You could walk around in there before, but it was all blown up. You couldn't really tell. You could just see the building. But that's a possibility for us to look at, even those of us that live in the Hester proper little town there. A lot of historical buildings, I mean, the gold camp and so on. Wouldn't it be great if we could get the whole entire dome listed as a historical site and just, sorry, close the business. We can't, I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with that stamp mill. I hope they don't have plans on plowing it under. I don't know if it's registered or as a historic place or anything, but I mean, those old buildings are pretty damn cool, and it'd be a real shame to see them last this long and then, oh, we got a corporation just comes in and bang, it's gone. You know, I kind of think that sucks.
Thank you, Kurt. And we'll go to Lou.
Hey everybody, my name's Lou Brown. I live basically down at the bottom of the road going off to Estradome. Really appreciate everybody who came out today. I have so many concerns about this whole thing, but the main concern I have, and I think it's a concern that everybody here should share, is your property values. If you live near a mine, your property values are going to go down. Should you ever need or want to sell your property, and you are within any kind of distance of an active mine, you are just going to be SOL. And I think everybody should be concerned about that. I mean, mining is not what it used to be. These are not small enterprises anymore. They're gigantic. Everybody is seeing the machinery that they use at Fort Knox. Those machines are gigantic. And there are people who live on Cleary Summit now who didn't used to look down into the pit of Fort Knox, but who do now. And their property